Okay, I'll call to order the city council meeting for May 13th, 2021. Everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call.
Steve Cherney.
Here.
Kevin Kadada.
Here.
Tim Root.
Here.
Cindy Fuhr.
Here.
And Scott Palava.
Here.
Okay, before we get going tonight, the governor's mandate, or mask mandate, is still in effect. Hopefully it ends soon. But for the time being, we ask that you wear a mask unless you come up to the podium and speak, and then you can pull it down. Thank you. Tonight's agenda goes through 10F. Is there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda is presented.
Motion by Councilman Palava, second by Councilman Kadada. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of minutes. Consider approval of the minutes from the April 29th, 2021 regular meeting. Any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes?
We approve the minutes.
Motion by Councilman Kadada, second by Councilman Cherney. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There's no public hearings. Presentation of citizen petitions and comments. Comments limited to 2 minutes. So if you're not on the agenda, now is your opportunity to speak. Okay. On to the consent agenda. There's one item. Consider approval to not waive the monetary limits on municipal tort liability established by Minnesota Statute 466.04. Would anyone like that pulled for discussion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Councilman Palava,
Second.
second by Councilperson Fuhr. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There's no old business. On to new business. Consider approval of application for payment number 1 in the amount of $22,971.95 to Key Contractors for the Police Facility Project. Melissa Stein, World Architects. Welcome.
Hello, Mayor, council members.
Hi.
I am just here to, have the pay app be approved and give an update if there is one that is needed. Obviously, we had the groundbreaking today, which was really exciting. We have our pre-con starting next week, and we'll be starting construction the following week, the week of May 25th.
Okay, starting May 25th.
Mm-hmm.
All right. How is the schedule looking like? I mean, the completion, I think we were talking the fall. Is that still realistic, or what are you looking at with the?
Yes, I have had some conversations with the city administrator. Joel and I have had numerous conversations about the schedule once we started getting lead times with some of our materials. As you know, that's been kind of up in the air.
Right.
We are no longer going to be hitting the fall, so
Okay.
we will be getting into kind of the 2022, beginning of 2022 is when we'll be looking at our completion for the project.
Okay, beginning 2022.
Yep.
All right. Do you still have the advisory board, the staff meetings with the advisory board like you did in the preliminary? Or is it now just between Old and staff?
Yeah.
We have not had any task force meetings since the project was finally designed and bid.
Okay. Do you think that there's a need to have one once in a while just to keep everybody abreast, or is it not necessary?
We could, I don't know.
Kick it around a little bit, just see if,
I guess if something major comes up or whatever, we could convene the task force. But
That'd be good, just 'cause everybody's kind of posted and kind of knows how it goes down the path and all that kind of stuff. Do you have any questions on the pay request, anybody? Didn't?
Yeah, I did have one. Is the money coming out of the general fund and we'll pay ourselves back when the bonds are sold? Is that how that works?
we've actually sold the bonds,
Oh, you did?
so all these pay requests will come out of the project fund.
Oh, good, okay, thank you.
Do you want to give them a summary of the bond sale, or do it at the budget meeting, or?
Uh,
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. That's
No, I
fine.
just want to know where it's coming from.
Okay.
Yeah, we've received the funds.
Perfect.
Okay, so 22,971.95.
We paid $22,971.95.
I second that.
Motion by Councilman Kadada, second by Councilman Cherney. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider approval of application for payment number 2 in the amount of $3,058.05 to Key Contractors for the police facility project. You're still up to the bat?
I'm still up here, yeah. So, typically you'll only have one, once a month. The first one was for this last one was for April, the one before was for March. So that is why there's 2 of them back to back. This one is mainly just for some shop drying, pieces, so it's a lot smaller than the first one, I believe.
These are all part of the contract, I suspect. right?
Yep.
Motion to approve payment number 2 in the amount of $3,058.05.
Motion by Councilman Cherney.
Second.
Second by Councilman Palava. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There, that was pretty painless, huh?
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, keep them small like that.
Yeah. All right, consider approval of the city's 2020 year-end audit / financial statements. Ryan Schmidt of Schlenner and Wenner. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. All right. Well, I'm going to walk us through a summarized version of the audited financial statements here. I've passed out the summary. I sent electronic copies over to Joel and Tammy as well. So if you need those or you haven't seen them, I'm sure they can pass them along. But we're going to hit on the high points today. So if you turn into the first page here where it says audit process and opinion up at the top, I'm going to just start out by talking about, a reminder of what the audit process is, what the purpose of it is. In general, as the graphic here kind of lays out, basically an audit consists of us obtaining your financial records and information from throughout the past year, and we perform a number of procedures over this information, whether it be inquiries with people within the city or outside of the city, developing analytics where we compare actual results to some sort of expectation, or some sort of detailed testing, whether it be through sampling, confirming information with the state, with the county, reviewing invoices, etc. Based on the results of all these procedures we completed this year, we've given you what's called an unmodified opinion, or in other words, a clean opinion. So that's the best opinion that you can achieve. So that's kind of the overall result of the audit. Next page here where it says required communications, this is just kind of some required information about how the audit actually went. So if we ran into any difficulties during the audit or we saw anything unusual as far as strange accounting policies or treatments, this is where we would tell you about it. So as you can see, there's nothing to report here in that regard. Everything looked as we expected it to, and nothing unusual stood out to us. The one item we do always like to point out is in looking through the financial statements, you might see information about a net pension liability and pension-related information. All of those items are subject to so many different actuarial inputs and estimates that can really fluctuate from year to year. So just be aware of that. That's something that's determined at the state level. There's really not a whole lot you can do about it.
Brian, what makes our folks stand above when it comes to auditing? What is it here about Tammy and Joel and the staff that makes them stand above this type of report?
Well, I think they care about the city a lot. I think they put a lot of effort into the preparations for the audit, and I know that they'll keep us honest too, as far as if they see anything that we're doing that they have a question about, as far as how we're coding a transaction or how we're reporting anything. I mean, I can tell that they put a lot of effort into it, and yeah, I commend them for that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to the next page. Part of the audit, we also go over some internal control related items, and then also we review your compliance with Minnesota statutes, and that's what we have summarized here. As part of the audit, we do assist with some year-end adjustments as far as getting you from that cash basis of accounting more to the accrual basis, where we have to record year-end balances for things like accounts payable, accounts receivable, salaries payable, debt, capital assets, etc. So we do assist with those year-end entries. The next item here, internal controls, just 2 items to report that are really common among all of the cities that we audit. The first of these, extremely common, a lack of proper segregation of duties. So what this means is that there's only so many people at the city who are involved with the accounting process. And because of that, there's inherently a heightened risk that something could go wrong. So just something to be aware of, practice oversight wherever possible. And then below that, just a note letting the readers know that we as a third party do prepare the financial statements for the city. And with that, there's always theoretically some risk that a disclosure might be missed or there might be something that we're not aware of that should be in the financial statements. And then last item on the right-hand side there, like I mentioned, we do a review of your compliance with various Minnesota statutes. The state gives us checklists in regards to how did you go about contracting and bidding, and how did you go about approving and paying your bills, and where do you keep your cash and investments. So we reviewed those items. We did not find any issues to report to you. So everything looked good there. Okay, so finally get into the numbers a little bit here. The first few pages here with numbers, we're going to focus on the general fund because that's where so much of the city's activity lies. And before I get into this too much, I wanted to mention the general fund in the financial statements contains actually several of the funds that you might see in your accounting system. So this is very common with many of the cities we work with, where to help simplify the financial statements and keep things a little more high level, it includes the library, it includes Parks and Rec, Road and Bridge, Fire Department. These are all items that from a reporting standpoint do not need to be segregated in your financial statements, but you do have them broken out in your accounting system so that you can run reports with greater detail. So I just wanted to make a note of that because I might mention some things here that would otherwise make you raise your eyebrows. So with that being said, we have a trend analysis here, 2016 through 2020, and then also the 2020 budget on the right-hand side. Really big picture for starters here. Overall, comparing actual 2020 results to the budget, revenues came in about $185,000 higher than budgeted, and expenditures were also over budget by about $269,000. Looking at the table down in the right-hand corner, we also have other sources there, which that $249,000, that's transfers in from other funds. That's $103,000 that came in from the liquor fund, and then also $146,000 that came in from the economic development fund. And that economic development transfer, that's CARES Act, Coronavirus Relief Fund money that actually went into that fund, the Economic Development Fund, and then was subsequently transferred. So with all of that activity, you had a decrease in your fund balance for the year of about $261,000 compared to a budgeted decrease of about $426,000. So you ended the year with a fund balance of about $2,869,000. Okay, so the next couple pages here, we get into a little more detail on the revenues and the expenditures in the general fund. So this first page here, we focus on the revenues. This breaks out that lump sum revenues on the previous page into various different categories here. And once again, we have a comparison to the budget for each category, and then we also have 2019 on there as well. So just real quick, across the board, it looks like actual 2020 revenues were pretty well in line with budgeted amounts. The biggest area where I see a difference here is under that intergovernmental revenue category, and that is due to the coronavirus relief aid that came through from the state this past year. About $64,000 got initially recorded in that general fund, and that's what's creating most of that difference you see there. The next page, we have the same layout, breaking out the expenditures for the general fund. And a few more items to talk about here. Just going to briefly touch on each of the 3 items here where there's a slightly bigger difference between budgeted and actual results. General government category on the left-hand side, you can see expenditures came in a bit over budget there. That's because of the pandemic-related expenses that you financed with those CARES Act dollars. So that's why you have a difference there. Under Public Works, you can see expenses are actually below budgeted amounts. Now, this is actually due to an expense that was reclassified for the industrial drive drainage project. So because this was capital in nature, we reallocated this into that capital outlay column on the right-hand side. But that reallocation did not occur with the budget, and as a result, we've got kind of some offsetting differences there. And then finally, that capital outlay column on the right-hand side, aside from that reclassification, that's also where the Churchka, if I'm saying that properly, all right. That's where those expenditures got coded, and that was a little bit outside of the budget as well. So that's why you've got a difference there. All right, and the next page, we look at the unassigned portion of your general fund balance as a percentage of your annual expenditures. And this is a very common ratio that's used as a benchmark among cities. You actually have a policy in place where this ratio would ideally be at least 42% for 5 months of operating expenses. And the percentage you had at the end of the year was above that policy at 52%. A little bit of a drop off there from 2019 to 2020, which of course relates to the decrease in fund balance we talked about, but also with expenses increasing, that also contributed to the decrease in the ratio. And just real quick, a slide here showing your cash balance over the past 6 years or 5 years in the general fund. A bit of a drop in 2020. Last year, or end of 2019, you were at about 2.4 million for cash, and we're down to about 1,645,000 at the end of 2020. So a good portion of that relates to the decrease in fund balance, but then another portion of this relates to an inter-fund type loan that inherently occurred because of the police facility project. So that project being accounted for in a separate capital project fund ran the cash balance into a deficit in that fund because you hadn't issued bonds for it yet. So whenever that happens and there's a cash deficit in a separate fund, it's inherently financed via borrowing from the general fund or from another fund.
That'll be recovered, won't it?
Yes, so with the debt that was issued that you guys just talked about, now that will be resolved, this will jump back up because now you have a funding source for that project. All right, next couple pages, we're just going to real quick talk about the other governmental type funds for the city. The first one here, we've got the Business Park Debt Fund and the Area 5 Capital Project Fund. Looking at the table on the right or the graph, the revenues in both of these funds consist primarily of taxes and assessments coming in, and then the expenses, payments of bond and interest and principal. The other sources and uses are the items that are a little more unusual this year. So looking in your Business Park Debt Fund, you have other uses there of about 1.7 million. This is the cash from a bond issuance from a few years back that was sitting in escrow. And now it finally got to the refunding date, that escrow got cleared out, and that 1.7 million got used to pay off your 2013 bond issuance. So that's what's making the fund balance there drop about 1.75 million in 2020. The Area 5 Capital Project Fund, just that other sources there, that's transfers from water and sewer. And next page, we have the Second Avenue Southwest Street Improvement Fund, and then we also have your non-major funds. So these funds are classified as non-major and all presented in aggregate because there's just less activity in these funds. So it's just a calculation. The Second Avenue Southwest Street Improvement Fund, biggest activity here is of course the project expenses of the 1.8 million. And then the little over 2 million that you see there for other sources on the right-hand side, that's the bond proceeds related to the project. So with that net activity, you had an overall fund or change in fund balance, an increase of about $308,000, and I would expect the remaining bond cash to probably be paid in 2021, expended in 2021. And non-major funds, this is your Economic Development Fund, your 2021 Street Improvement, Police Facility Fund, etc. Taxes and assessments went into these funds, that's most of the revenues, as well as about $245,000 of that coronavirus aid got coded into that economic development fund. And then that transfer out, that's reallocating some of that to the general fund. That's that other uses of $131,000 that you see in the right-hand column there. So overall, you had a decrease in those non-major funds of about $527,000. And real quick, we just have cash for each one of those funds as well. Most of them you can see held pretty steady. The biggest movement we see here from 2019 to 2020 would be for that Second Avenue street project, just due to the bond proceeds exceeding the expenses for the year. Okay, down to the proprietary funds, or the enterprise funds. So we've got, for each one of these funds, starting with water, we have a 5-year analysis here. Once again, showing the graph is focusing on operations, operating revenues and expenses, and then we have additional details down at the bottom. So comparing 2020 to 2019, just to see what changed. Operating revenues up about $86,000 from the prior year. Operating expenses, on the other hand, actually down about $24,000. So you had an operating loss this year of $87,000 compared to about $198,000 in the prior year. Now, with this, you of course have your revenues from new connections as well, which historically has always been classified under non-operating revenues, but it does seem to be pretty consistent from year to year. So you had about $105,000 from new connections this past year as well. Aside from that, the non-operating revenues that you see there of $665,000, that's primarily, outside of those connections, capital assets being transferred from the Area 5 Capital Project Fund. So when that project got completed, the water, sewer, utility portion of the project, of that asset, got transferred into this fund, so it's a non-cash item that's increasing your fund, or your net position here for the fund. Overall, an increase of $448,000 for a net position in that fund. Sewer fund, biggest change you see on the next page for the sewer fund is that drop in expenses there. Last year in 2019, you had that lift station decommissioning project, which really spiked your expenses quite a bit. A little bit of a return to normalcy here. Revenues increased about $41,000. Add in the non-operating items, you had an overall increase in your net position of about $332,000. And finally, on to the liquor fund. Obviously a great year for your liquor fund, as we've seen kind of across the state with all the municipal liquor stores we've worked with. Operating revenues, or gross sales, I guess, are up about $469,000 from the prior year. Operating expenses, so not only the cost of those sales, but other operating expenses, up about $369,000. So overall, your operating income up to about $163,000, about $100,000 more than it was in 2019. So with that, you were able to transfer $103,500 out to the, well, technically the 404 Parks Fund, but wrapped within the general fund in the financials. So overall, still with that transfer in mind, you had an increase in net position of $60,000. Ended the year with a net position of about $1.1 million. And then, just like with the other funds, just a quick look at the cash over the past several years for all three of these funds, water, sewer, and liquor. You can see all three of them held pretty steady. Liquor fund jumped up even with that transfer out to the general fund, and a slight drop in water, but for the most part water and sewer held pretty steady. Okay, so that does it for all the fund financial statements. In the big full audited financial statement packet, there's kind of a separate set of financials in there as well, where we wrap everything together and we take a look at it in a government-wide financial statement. And these government-wide financials, they include things like capital assets, long-term debt, these non-current items that aren't factored into some of your other funds like your general fund. So this page focuses on assets, really big picture for the entire city, and then the next page focuses on liabilities. Looking at 2019 compared to 2020, you can see overall assets increased slightly. There's a bit of an increase there. But the bigger change is the allocation of the assets. So you can see current assets, so your cash, your receivables, more short-term items, those decreased, and then your non-current or your capital assets, infrastructure, equipment, buildings, etc., that increased. So it's just an investment of your cash into that infrastructure. It's really the story here. And next page, same exact layout, but for your total citywide liabilities. Not much change in your current liabilities. Your outstanding debt, however, did drop off, largely due to that $1.7 million refunding payment out of escrow. Got that bond paid off. But overall, a decrease in your liabilities. And then we always break out that net pension liability just because we've discussed it in the past. There's not much you can do about that. And one final page here just to take a look at your long-term debt outstanding over the past 5 years, broken out here between governmental funds versus your proprietary funds. So governmental funds being the debt that's being financed by taxes and assessments versus your business type or your proprietary fund debt that's being financed by your utilities. Both down at the bottom, I've noted the dates through which the final payoffs extend. Biggest change here, I guess you had an increase in your governmental funds debt due to street improvement bond issuances, and then also a decrease in your business type fund debt just due to payments made during the year. Any questions?
It's good. Yeah, really good. How do we compare for a city our size to other cities? We're still
Yeah,
strong.
I mean, there's a lot of growth here. That's kind of what I've gathered is that just the rate. I mean, if you go back to that page where I had the general fund and you look at your budget over the past 5 years and the revenues and the expenses and just the growth that you've gone through even over the past 5 years, I mean, I think you're probably very healthy from that perspective and from the tax base perspective. So I have no concerns.
And then I think you commented that you're satisfied or happy with staff, with Joel, Tammy.
Yeah,
Done
yeah.
a good job and all that kind of stuff. So
Yep, yep.
Good, good.
If I may,
Yeah.
Your Honor. Ryan, I had this idea, came about 3 weeks ago. I was having a discussion with some folks about the COVID money
Sure.
from a governmental standpoint. And please correct me if I'm wrong, or just tell me to shut up. Okay? Right. So as a city, we get, I think, go around, what do we get, Joel? $311,000.
Yep.
Okay. That money is going to have to be recovered somehow by the government, right?
Well, yeah, you would think so.
Okay. So when we include that in we're at the beginning of our budget process next year. So I was kicking this thing around and I thought, well, man, if we include that in our budget, it's going to be taxed probably as federal, state. We build it in our budget as kind of like, hey, we got some free money, but then our poor citizens are taxed again on that. Does it make sense to hold that money out, or any future monies? Honestly, I want your opinion on it, because it bugs the heck out of me.
I think part of the issue is that it's probably a use it or lose it situation. So everybody else is going to use it. So if you,
I was just
if
gonna
you
say, I
don't-
don't see how do you say it's taxed? I don't get
Well,
that. Because if you, like you say, you either use it for purposes or you send it back.
Well, I'm talking on the Fed level, they're going to have to recover it somehow on the Fed level, Your Honor, and then it'll trickle down to the state, through taxes. And then we're basically using our money, and so we build a budget around, a tax rate around, for instance, we treat it as a revenue source a revenue source.
Yeah, but it's only specific, right? I mean, it's only
No,
specific
that's
for coal,
fine.
but I
I
mean,
mean,
you
that's
can't
fine.
use it for.
No, we can't use it for
Lowering
finding
taxes.
whatever, but do you
Yeah,
understand
I
what
mean,
I'm saying?
I think what you're getting at is that overall, regardless of what you do, it's probably gonna result in increased taxes
Yes.
from state and federal
Yes,
for the citizens of
but it's not our
Lonsdale.
responsibility to manage that down here.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, it's really a political theory. you
Oh,
know.
it is
I mean,
political.
you know,
Yeah.
One party's just gonna print more money, or do you
Well, that's
actually
all,
take-
well, I gotta be.
But I mean, no, but that's.
But you understand,
Yeah,
We could talk a long time
yeah,
about this.
let's just, you've given me what I,
Yeah,
thank you, Ryan, you did a great job.
Okay.
thank you.
Anyway, just another shout out to Tammy and Joel for all your hard work, another excellent job. you've done for-
Tammy deserves the credit. She's the one that, quite frankly, does basically everything for the audit, so.
Yeah,
She,
and,
Great
she
job.
deserves the credit.
Great job. You wanna take a bow, or?
well, and I know it was more work this year too, because we took
Yeah.
a remote approach.
Yeah.
I was just talking to her before this, and we're hoping next year to get back to being on site at least for a few days or a couple days, and make it a little less
Normalcy.
I
painful.
think everything works better in person.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. So, yep.
Thank you, sir. Thank you
Alright.
for your report and presentation.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good.
I make a motion, we approve the city's 2020 year-end audit.
Motion by Councilman Kadada,
Second.
second by Councilman Palava. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider approval to make a conditional job offer to Cole Walters as seasonal public works employee at grade 1, step 6, $14.92 an hour. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Up until about this time last year, cities were prohibited from hiring 16 and 17-year-olds for, operating motorized equipment. Since then, last year would have been the first year that we are allowed to hire 16 and 17-year-olds to operate lawn equipment, trimmers, riding lawnmowers, designed to cut grass, etc. They can also be employed by resorts and golf courses. There are some requirements that us as the employer have to comply with, as well as the employee. In this case, Cole Walters, well, I'll take a step back. During the 2021 budget process, I know you guys heard this at the last meeting when we made job offers to seasonals. $37,000 was budgeted for seasonal employees. We had planned on 3. Given schedules, we're recommending that more than that be hired. We've already hired 3. This would be the 4th job offer made. The Public Works Director has worked with our current seasonals and established a schedule that would accommodate the budget and at least 4 seasonal, or at least, excuse me, at least 5 seasonal employees. In this case, Cole Walters is a high school student. The Public Works Director and myself interviewed him before our last city council meeting. He interviewed well, has experience operating all kinds of farm equipment, our lawnmowers, things like that. I believe he comes highly recommended. We've had conversations at the HR level regarding Mr. Walters. It would be staff's recommendation to make a conditional job offer to Cole Walters as seasonal public works employee, grade 1, step 6, $14.92 an hour.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Palava,
Second.
second by Councilperson Fear. Any further discussion?
I have to throw in and ask a question. Is he an Eagle Scout as well? Bill?
Yes, he is.
Yes.
He
yeah.
has achieved that.
Okay, thank you. That's all,
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, discuss a request for a second curb cut at the property located at 420 Second Avenue Northwest. Councilman Palava.
Mayor and members of the council. Mr. Swanson approached me a couple weeks back in regards to a piece of property that he wanted to, that he resides at, wanting to build a garage on his property. And turns out, given the situation, the way that the property is, the house is situated on the property, there's a southern portion that is where he wanted to place a garage. It would have required a curb cut for a driveway to go in there. That curb cut is not in compliance with the city code, which does not allow two curb cuts on one parcel within 125 feet of each other. I apologize, my computer dropped the report, so I was trying to bring it back up here. But ultimately, so he came to City Hall, talked to staff about it, and felt he wasn't getting anywhere with it or what for whatever reason. And then he reached out to me. Wanted to discuss ways to resolve this situation. There was afterwards we found out that a conditional use permit was possibly an option, but we needed to see if that was going to be a suitable option for him, or if council action to allow him to make this change to his property would be in line. So Brian, did you want to come up and talk about your situation?
Sure.
You can take your mask down to speak if you like.
The way our property's set up, the house is too far north for me to do anything on the north side. I could put it in the backyard, the garage in the backyard, but then I was wondering who would maintain the alleyway, since I'd have to use the alleyway. You know, I would prefer to use the alleyway. Was told that they would not maintain the alleyway. And I said, well, I just would like to put it on the south side of the house, because it makes the most sense. We have the most room over on the side of the house, and if I ever want to go out the back, then the garage isn't impeding me, you know, if I want to build off the back of the house. I'm just looking to improve my house, to improve what's in the city too. I love Lonsdale, it's a great city. I'm just trying to work with everybody so that I can get.
So the short answer, the short request is you want a second curb cut
Yes.
on the property. Okay?
And what was brought, to my attention, if we take out the pad and seed it, that was an option too, so that it's at least filled in with grass.
Right.
And I have no problem doing that.
And the reason you wanted to maintain the original curb cut is because of the
Layout of the house.
yeah, the accessibility to the kitchen for groceries or whatnot, so it would be a once a week driveway.
Yeah.
Which if you had a SUV, you drive over the curb and you could do the same thing, but
Yes.
yeah, given your vehicle, wouldn't be able to do that, so we're just looking for, input, my initial, view of it, I don't know that a conditional use permit would really pertain to this, because it discusses more about the flow and accessibility, almost more like a business, and I don't believe those conditions would pertain to this situation. So, just looking for discussion and see how we can work with them.
Okay, I guess we should have city staff's background and point of view. Obviously, we see the reports here. Maybe Joel or Ben, want to just clarify the actual ordinance, what's allowed, what's not allowed, and all that kind of stuff?
Sure. Mayor, council, city code 153.078, H1B curb cuts, says that each property shall be allowed one curb cut for each 125 feet of street frontage, unless a conditional use permit is approved based on the criteria that it is necessary to provide adequate circulation on site, additional access to create minimal conflict with movement, can't be closer than 5 feet to any side or rear lot lines unless approved by the engineer. Any curb cuts on county roads are to be reviewed by the county engineer. And then it just talks about curb cuts through wooded, steep, or open fields shall be constructed to support emergency vehicles, which really wouldn't pertain in this situation. The staff's perspective is we get asked this question all the time, and we're consistent and follow the ordinance, and that is the position that staff has taken. If the city council chooses to pursue a different path, that is fine with us.
Yeah, I have a question.
Good.
Joel, if we took the existing curb cut and converted that back to a curb, in other words, retained it as a curb, and then put a new curb cut in to this man so it makes his lot a little bit more usable, is that possible?
I don't think that's just.
Well, yeah, that would be
Yeah,
compliant,
that's
that
not
would
the
be
issue.
compliant with the
No, I
city
know.
code. That's what staff told them.
Yeah,
No, I know, but has that
Yeah.
ever been done?
yeah, we can do that.
Oh.
But that's not the issue, is that he's asking for two curb cuts.
He wants to
Oh,
keep,
he
he wants to keep the
curb
existing
cuts.
and
Oh,
add another one.
Oh, I see, okay, I thought.
That's the
okay,
issue.
I missed that
I,
then. Okay.
I think, I generally think there's a way to work things out. The trouble is the justification of the precedents. You get this question all the time, and we've been saying no. But on the other hand, he could get a conditional use permit to do it, I assume, is that right? And
Correct.
is that workable, or is that not?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm reading what the conditions are, it's just my interpretation. I'm not, but I didn't believe, the additional curb cut is necessary to provide adequate on-site circulation. That's a really hard one to quantify. The additional access shall create a minimum of conflict with through movement or shall comply with that. That, I have a hard time tying that to it. So, and then the other ones the other conditions after that don't pertain to it. So it really it doesn't look like it would work. Maybe I'm wrong. That's just my interpretation of it.
Well, I think,
I haven't had to deal with a conditional use permit on this before.
right. I guess for me, it's the precedence. I certainly would like to see, if that's what's needed to figure something out. I just think a conditional use permit gives you a justification to do it.
Well,
You-
I'll agree, but I wanna,
Yeah.
I don't know if
But there's
the,
no grounds there.
there's no
Brian.
grounds
If
for
you
it.
take
That-
his facts and you apply them to the conditional use permit, they don't fit. So in other words, conditional use permit is not the avenue here. And that's the way I read it too,
Yeah.
and looking at.
Well, no, I get that, but just to come and say, all right, city council, just change the rules, the rules don't
We can't,
apply.
shouldn't do that.
No,
here.
I
Right.
understand.
That's right.
And in fact, this man, if he, in my opinion, and I hate to be, let me put it this way, we have the ordinances here, and you know this too, so that we have consistency. And yes, you're an old town, I've gone out there, but we have to keep this consistency, because if we allow it for one person, then we're gonna have to start bidding it for a second, and a third, and a fourth, in Old Town. First thing you know, everybody has two curb cuts. So, my opinion is, if you want this second curb cut in here, you're gonna have to abandon the other one and put the curb in. Yeah.
Just wait, yeah, but we don't want to get into debate.
No, I don't
You
wanna-
more, we speak.
I
Just-
don't want to debate this at
No.
all, but
No,
we have.
I'm not.
Okay, come in, yeah.
I'm just,
Yeah.
pointing some stuff out here.
Okay.
And I understand that it's part of the old part of town, but our neighbor right to the north of me, he has 3 curb cuts. The one that's across the street, he's got 2 curb cuts. The one across the street from them's got 2 curb cuts, and I'm not trying to beat up the system.
Yeah.
I'm really not.
No, I know,
I have a certain amount of money I can spend,
sure.
and if I could afford to just move my house over so I could put a garage on the side, I would. But I'm only allotted so much money.
Right.
And, I'm just looking for some, I guess, consistency. you know, and I understand that some of it is from the old part, but nobody made them fill it in.
I think, the point is, I think we're trying to help you.
Right.
No, and I
But we have
understand
to,
that.
we have to justify why we're doing it, just like Councilman Cherney says, we can't just arbitrarily pick one guy and says, well, he gets 2 and everybody else is. So we're just trying to find a reason. Typically, you would apply for a variance for hardship or conditional use or those kind of things to justify, because what, you know, just like Cherney said, you know, next week somebody up here's gonna want 2 curb cuts. And
So-
then over in Sinking Hills they'll want 2 curb cuts.
The last one on Birch Street, Ben, that has a conditional use permit on that property, correct? With the 2 driveways? Or a variance. That one, I think that one had to come in for a variance process for the proposed garage because of lot lines. And that one is granted 2 proposed, or 2 accesses, 2 curb cuts. I'm assuming you'll have to come in for a permit on your garage. At that time, couldn't we just, you know, try for the conditional use permit as well and treat it the same? You know, this has been done a year ago.
Yep, so, I believe the
Right.
the property on Birch,
Yep.
has had an existing garage and a driveway.
Yep.
And so they've added a garage an attached garage to the house, I believe.
Right.
And what was approved by the planning commission is that they will only have 1 curb cut. And it'll be 28 feet at the curb. So that was a variance with the building setback and the width of the driveway. You know, for, as far as the conditional use permit at this property, subject to the following criteria. You know, additional access is necessary to provide adequate on-site circulation. You know, given the alley and how that driveway has been used in the past, you know, that would seem to check that box. I guess where I'm going with this is I would, never say never, staff's not the one that approves conditional use permits, but I would say, you know, pretty confidently that if the city was to require, you know, allow the existing curb cut to stay there would be the cost of removing the apron, the cost of excavating out the current gravel. We're just not gonna allow, you know, sprinkle some seed on some class 5 that's been there for 50 years. Never gonna grow, so we would want to establish turf. I think that was,
No, I understand that.
so you can have a
And I
cost
think we
there.
kinda agreed to that.
I guess,
Right.
where I'm going with this is if you know, paid, I think it's a $300 application fee, and, I mean, this seems pretty simple, any escrow funds would probably be returned. It's probably a cost neutral endeavor to apply for the conditional use permit.
So Joel,
And just leave the existing curb and gravel driveway there.
So,
Maybe limit it to the
Okay.
back of the house or something.
Joel, so you're.
But I think there's a solution here.
Okay, so are you saying that B, that additional access would create or I'm sorry, or for the site, that wording would approve it? That would meet that criteria? That's,
Well, you know, but it's not gonna meet, you know, you know, you're supposed, you know, you're looking at these, you know, it's not a county road, so, you know, you're not gonna, you know, focus on that. You know, not applicable, right? Sensitive areas, not applicable, right? You know,
So they,
I would think that
conditional use
the
process-
adjacent neighbors would be, happy if, you know, the drive, or the alley wasn't used, and there wasn't, you know, access from Second Avenue to the alley, and the majority, you know, 99% of the access is to the new garage.
do you have more?
no, that's what I was trying to find out, because my opinion, when I read it, I didn't think it met that criteria. That's why I was looking for that clarification. So, you would think that when you said I would check that box, that could potentially meet that criteria, is what you're saying? Okay. See,
Okay.
it's not my area of expertise.
Okay, no.
When I read it, I viewed it
No,
as, it
it's-
wouldn't
yeah.
have made it.
Well, I think just so we're clear, obviously we wanna work with you, we just
No,
have to
I-
have justification, you know, really, is
Yeah,
what.
and I understand that.
Councilman Cherney?
And because of what Joel said, Your Honor, in terms of being able to check the box with respect to the flow and Al and all this, satisfy the conditional use permit, so this man should apply for a conditional use permit.
Right, so just, we should clear up a couple of things though. Okay, explain to him the conditional use process.
And you're probably better at that.
So we when you have your garage, you'll have to get a survey. We would take that and put on where you put your garage and draw that on there. You would submit that with your application form of $300 and $750 escrow. Typically, we like to have that in about a month and a half before the next planning commission meeting, and then we do send out notices to everybody within 350 feet. So there would be a public hearing at the planning commission meeting, and then everybody would get a chance to, neighbors would get a chance to comment on the project. After that, there's a recommendation by the planning commission, and that goes to the city council, and that's where you get your final approval if that's the way that it went.
And just so you're clear, you get the $750 back. That's just the escrow, right?
And you can use that same survey for your garage, for your building permit, so.
And from what I'm hearing, we're hearing from staff is you're generally supportive of conditional use permit. Secondly, we should talk about that alley. So what is the policy for the alleys in town?
Well, the ones that are maintained, we do, we plow them, we maintain them. I'm not aware that we've ever done anything with this alley that would be off of, what is that, Dogwood?
And it's only half a block.
Right.
Some,
There were requests to vacate that in the past, but previous owners that, had access to that unvacated portion didn't want to vacate it because they, stored stuff back in their backyards and needed access. I think it goes right to, this property's south property line, and then after that, the alley is vacated.
so I guess, and we've done that a couple of years ago, started trying to get rid of some of these outlots and these parcels. Can we look more at vacating some of these alleys? Is that good, bad? I mean, so we're not dealing with this? I mean, because I assume a property owner could make an argument that it's an alley and cities should take care of the alley. I mean, you could make that argument even though we don't, you know.
Right.
I don't know, I'm just
Yeah,
thinking out loud.
The other thing comes up is, so if it's city property and, for example, he decided to put his garage in the backyard, and so now he's gotta pay for, snow removal, maintenance, whatever. I don't believe that's quite legal, or, that he's using private funds to maintain public,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
now insurance comes into play and all that stuff, so I don't think that that's the
Right.
right way to do that either.
Right, you can make that argument, you're right.
Well, the process would be they would, petition for the improvement, and, I think it's more than 35% of the adjacent property owner sign the petition, then the council would have to decide how it's financed. Does the city pay for it? Is it assessed? Is
You
it
talking
paved?
about, no, wait, for the alley?
For the alley.
I'm going the other way.
No, I
Why do
know,
we look
but-
stronger at getting rid of these alleys?
No, I agree.
I mean, maybe that could be a
But
task.
there's, I was
Yeah.
just trying to, there's no,
Especially that alley that has a dead end.
Right.
Well,
I would
right.
assume there's probably no utilities.
I mean, I actually got a couple complaints about that alley behind your old place. I'm still getting that. And, so I just think if we can get rid of some of these problems.
yeah, and I'm not sure what the, I know the residents that had talked, that wanted to vacate it, and ones that didn't, don't currently live at any of these properties. So I don't know what the sense or the temperature of the adjacent property owners is.
I mean, I
There may
just
be-
think that's
There may
something
be
that-
half of them that
Right.
don't
But-
want to vacate, I don't know.
Well, maybe it's something
I
that Ben could look at, not everything's gonna be equal, but I mean, if you have a few blocks that, everybody wants the backyard, they don't care about the alley, and we don't need it for easement of utilities, why do we have it? Why does let
Yeah.
the property owner have it?
Just the way it was platted
Right.
back in.
Well,
Yeah,
right, no, that is
the
right.
300 block. and
No, that's
alley.
right.
Yeah, but if you can't maintain it,
Right.
what are you doing with it?
Right, right. So I think maybe if, Ben gets time, we can start working on that or research that.
Sorry.
So I guess just to summarize then, if I'm understanding the city council correct, we're requesting him to submit an application for conditional use, and staff will help you with the process and all
Okay.
that. And like I say, it sounds like staff is supportive, so you're off to, a
A
good
good
start.
start.
Yeah. And ultimately, it's our decision, but planning and zoning are really good guys too, they're reasonable guys. and all.
How long, I mean, a rough estimate, how long that will, once I get it started, how long will it take? Just because lumber prices keep shooting up.
Yeah.
You might hit the downslide before.
I don't wanna wait that long.
I mean, really could be approved by the end of June? I mean, we're in the middle of May now.
Midsummer, somewhere in there.
It's relatively fast, it's,
Okay.
yeah. But I mean, that one, well, I suppose it wouldn't necessarily prohibit your building, but I suppose it can a bit on the access.
Yeah, the most time-consuming portion is just the public hearing notice.
Right.
You got 10 days for that, but then you have to hit the paper, so then that's another week. Submit
So you-
completed application and
Right.
stuff.
So the next P and Z is what, middle of June, I suppose, right?
Yeah, about a month from now.
Can you still make that, you can still make that, I suspect, right?
We'll have to get a survey, that'll be getting the surveyor
Uh-huh.
on board and getting that hired out. I can give you a list of
I'd be
surveyors.
happy.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions here. In looking at this, I think we can all look at this, his diagram of his picture, of his lot, and realize that it is a double lot, and we can all agree with that. So if, in looking at Old Town, and yes, I know we have all our ordinances in place to protect everything, but this is a unique situation. So instead of him having to get a conditional use permit and weeks of, do a public hearing and all the stuff, the rigmarole that goes with, is it not something so simple that we can allow him to put the driveway access there on what would be essentially the other lot?
But it's one
You look
parcel.
across the
But it's
street.
one, right.
Oh, yes, I know it's one parcel, but, really, in looking at it logically, it was two lots, but probably Doc put it into one.
Right.
PID'd it under one thing versus the two, as you read the description here, it says, and all of this, so it must have at one time been two separate, is gonna be my guess. I haven't gone back that far into the Beacon stuff to see if it even explains much of it.
I mean, I
And,
get,
and I get following all the, we
Right.
have our ordinances in place for protection, but also, there are sometimes extenuating circumstances.
See, I don't know what action, legal action the council takes. We can't just do a head nod. I mean, I see what you mean. The double lot aspect makes this unique here, but from a legal standpoint, we only have so many tools to work with. Joel, what tool would that be? A council does a what? We have tools, the conditional use permit, the variance, those are the two kind of wiggle worm. But can the council, if we just say, okay, go ahead and put it in because it's a double lot, it sounds reasonable, what is that? What is that legally?
Well, I guess not being an attorney,
No, but I mean,
I guess
That's a good point. Yes, that's a good point.
I guess the biggest thing would be people that have pursued other options,
And took the right path.
saying, well, hey, what about me?
Right.
Right.
right. It's not so much letting you do it, it's a justification.
Right.
For the rest of the town.
We don't have the tools to do it.
Right. That's the thing. Good.
And if it's, the council doesn't like the rule, and planning commission could look at the rule and adjust the rule if this is something that, we're not in favor of in the old part of town.
That's a good, maybe we should look at the old.
Because if this comes up again.
Yeah, so what does the rule become then? So
Right.
everybody
Well, you would
gets
have-
two curb cuts? Is that-
Yeah, you could research it, but I'm just saying, if we don't like the rule, then we could change the rule.
Seems like the fastest
Well,
thing to
yeah.
expand is
Yeah.
the conditional.
The 125, the 125-foot rule is that's where we have the issue. If it was if it was more than 125 feet,
Okay, let's do it this way, you guys. What's the penalty if he just says, hell with it, I'm just gonna go cut it in? What's his penalty? We fine him what, $500 or something? I don't know, what is the penalty?
I think that would put his building permit in jeopardy in my mind.
I don't think we would.
I'm just taking the extreme
Yeah.
here.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey,
There have been ones who've gone rogue on different things.
Yeah.
That we
And
haven't
they-
ever corrected.
They've been shut down.
Yeah.
Him and the developer. Yeah.
Well, I don't wanna go rogue.
Okay,
Okay.
we're covering all the bases.
I mean, the right thing to do is follow the procedure,
Yeah.
do the conditional use permit and get it approved and I think everybody's cool.
Okay. I can do that. How are you guys?
So then we have a plan for him.
Okay.
I'll be here on Tuesday.
And I will say, Councilman Plava has worked his tail off on your.
I know he
behalf.
has, and I really appreciate it.
That's what I get paid to do.
Just not enough, right?
Thank you.
Okay, all right,
$95,
thank
huh?
you. All right, consider approval of application for payment number one in the amount of $108,710.07 to BCM Construction Inc. for the 2021 street utility improvement project. Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. Well, we had the pre-construction meeting for this project back in early April, and construction activities started mid-April. Substantial completion date is September 10th, and the final completion date is June 30th of next year. BCM, this is the first payment for this project, so just a reminder, they're proposing to construct the project in 2 phases. So phase 1 is 4th Avenue Southwest, Delaware from 3rd to 4th. And phase 2 is the remainder, which includes 3rd Avenue Southwest, Colorado from 2nd to 3rd, and Delaware from 2nd to 3rd. As of today, they've completed the water main in phase 1, and they've completed the water services south of Delaware. They will likely not be working tomorrow because they have been putting in longer days, and seeing as they are on schedule, they're not working overtime to get ahead. So, yeah, all the tree clearing was completed, roadway removals, and the water main installation through services south of Delaware. This is pay voucher 1 for work completed through April 30th. The work on this pay voucher is primarily the clearing and grubbing project-wide, bituminous pavement reclamation, curb and driveway removals, traffic control, temporary water system, and new water main installation. As of the cutoff date, it was most of it in phase 1. So based on quantities to date and the progress, construction costs are tracking at near budgeted amounts. With this payment, about 7% of the original contract value will have been paid, and the payment amount reflects the standard 5% retainage as required by the contract. Staff's recommendation is to approve pay voucher 1 to BCM Construction for $108,710.07.
Motion by Councilman Kadada,
Second?
second by Councilman President Fuhrer. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes the planned agenda. On to department reports. Mr. Vlasov.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, drain tile on Willow Creek has been installed. Grading and seeding will be taken care of next week. Parks are up and running, irrigation is on, Vets Memorial is up and running. Parks are looking really good, and they're being used like crazy. They're actually better than usual because of the dry weather.
Pretty amazing
Most of
for
our parks
early
are
May. Yeah.
in lower areas, so they're a lot better than usual, actually. Mill and overlay, milling is going to take place tomorrow at Industrial Park Drive, and overlay on Monday. Crack fill should be finished tomorrow also, so a lot of things are going on.
What about the parking lot at Trichka Park?
That is started. They're gonna be putting the catch basin in on Monday, and a concrete.
Once they get their equipment repaired
Right.
on Monday, and then concrete would follow that. There's just one catch basin and all of it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Powell.
Nothing further than Public Works Director already talked about.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Erickson.
Liquor license has been sent out. Been working with APG on marketing for the EDA, the display ads and the pre-roll. We had a department head meeting last week on the budget. We've got our budget meeting next Thursday at 6 o'clock. Met with the city planner and the police chief on food trucks and discussing how we proceed from here. It kind of seemed like it was hot and heavy with lots of inquiries from multiple food trucks. I think that's kind of died down here a little bit. So for the time being, we're going to proceed like we did last year. But probably will have to have some type of rules and regulations in place for next year. So we're gonna see how it goes.
I suspect the Lions have called, they're concerned too about, I don't know if you need an umbrella organization or whatever. Just want to chat with you guys.
Yep, I believe they've been in contact with the city planner.
Okay.
We attended the groundbreaking for the PD, so that'll be starting here towards the end of the month. Pre-con next Wednesday, I believe it's in the morning, so.
Okay, on the police station, we should make that added to the next week's budget meeting agenda, the first item. I think the city council would like an update of the projected schedule, the changes to date, any additions, deletions, changes, all those kind of things. I don't know if we're all clear on where that's at. So if you could research that, and that should be a first item. And then the second thing, of all these COVID dollars, there's no way to use any of these dollars towards the police facility, whether it's security or interior upgrades, or, I mean, can that be researched, or is that just a?
Yep, I definitely plan on researching it. I know businesses, some of the allowable expenses that they can apply for would be additions to their facilities that were delayed due to COVID. I know, and this is what took so long for and it's still only an interim rule on what these funds can be spent on, but it appears clear that the city can't spend these dollars to reduce taxes or delay a tax increase. But I will be checking into the increased costs and things like that, if we could be treated like a business.
Well, or even safety upgrades, or technology upgrades, interior upgrades, any of those kind of things.
Yeah, those aren't allowed.
Aren't they? Okay. Well, I guess whatever.
From what I read.
Yeah, whatever. And then, of course, you know, it should be nice to get that schedule pinned down. I mean, I get the raw materials and all that jazz, but.
Yep, we have our pre-con on Wednesday, so they are to provide a schedule.
Okay, yeah. Okay, and then last in the police facility, so, the food shelf has elected to work out a lease with Trondheim Church instead of acquiring our building. I mean, it's obviously premature to sell our building, but we should start thinking about that as the summer goes on, as, you know, I don't think we want to hold it any longer than we have to, of course, but if she's saying now it's January, February, we may not want to do anything yet, but I guess we should just kind of think about that too as we put on the path. But again, I just, like I said tonight, I think the city council, all of us, I mean, it's really a great effort that we stood in there and said, we're gonna do this, and moved it forward and helped the city, and once it's completed, I mean, they're gonna think it's just terrific, so thank you to all of you for playing with it. Anything else there, Joel?
No, Mayor.
Mr. Baker?
Through May, we are at 230 permits processed. Probably 5 to 7 years back, there was years that we had about 230 permits for the whole year, so could break a record, I'm guessing, for permits if it keeps going by the end. 28 new homes, 12 issued, the rest are under review, so quite a few under review right now. We have our first twin homes in quite a while, so if you go on Ash, right by the Villages of Lonsdale, there's 2 twin homes or 4 units staked out right now.
So how many lots are left in town?
I mean, we're between 80 and 140 or so. There's different types of lots, the regular lots and then the twin home lots. So.
Let's go on fast.
They're getting picked over, yeah.
I mean, it's gonna take 2 years to construct a new subdivision, you know. Okay, thank you, Mr. Baker. Council Attorney, yes.
Well, the library board has an applicant for a new board member. We, as you know, we amended our bylaws to allow that, and also the liaison, but not a voting member, to allow someone from the community to come in. So excited about that applicant. Which I can't name yet because I don't know who it is, but Marguerite said we have one. So anyway.
Okay.
And then a couple of plugs here, Your Honor. The chamber event, I believe, on the 15th, over in McAfee.
20th.
When is it? The 20th?
20th.
Okay, the 20th? And then I doubt the Legion and the Sons of Legion is in our paper too. They're looking for folks that are gonna have the Sons of Legion. And just plugging that as well.
Good.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Councilman Kadada.
No meeting since our last meeting, but our next planning and zoning is Monday evening. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Councilperson Farrell.
We just got the liquor store numbers from April today. We have sales a little bit increased from last month, so that's always a plus. Inventory up a little bit, but I think we're rolling into summer, so that there's a lot of beer sales pertaining to that. And the EDA will meet next week.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Councilman Palava.
Cindy touched on the EDA, and that's all I had.
Hey, well, you did do a good job for your resident, though, seriously. That's
No,
good.
just, and
Yeah.
I explained to him too, this wasn't a for sure thing, but I think it's better to understand the process
Yeah.
and.
But I think it's good
work
that
through
you as a councilman reached out to him and kind of carried the ball and all that. It's good. Good deal. A couple of things. I don't know if you guys know what persuasive letters are. You probably do, but I have 2 students from TCU that wrote persuasive letters to the city council. And I said, well, I'll read them for you, and if they want to move forward, I'll ask them to attend. So the first one here is, Dear Mayor, we need your help. Lonsdale is running out of fun things to do, but I know what to do. Build a community pool. The community pool will open tons of fun for families and friends. Lonsdale has lots of parks, but it's getting boring to play at parks over and over again. It's hard to admit, but Lonsdale doesn't have fun places to hang out. In the summer, it's gotten really hot and always has been. It's gotten to 115 degrees. That's why a pool would be a great place to cool off in the summer. The pool will open up simple jobs for teenagers, such as lifeguards and a concession worker, because a lot of young teenagers need a job that's close to them that they could walk or bike. How are we going to raise enough money? I've got it covered. We have a carnival with bouncy houses, food trucks. It would cost $3 per person. People would hang out, eat food, and the kids would bounce on the bouncy houses. We wouldn't get all the money just by the fair, but with insurance, money from the fair, and money from the town, we could have enough money. I think that the pool would be best at the lot next to McIntoons. There's plenty of room there. It's time we add fun to this town by adding a community pool. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Easton Balma. Okay, number 2, and yeah, I certainly can pass these around if you guys care to look at them. Dear Mayor, we need a community pool here in Lonsdale. It gets hot in Minnesota. The hottest it has ever been is 115 degrees, and that is hot. We need a community pool, and another reason is so families can get together and have fun at the same time. It is important for families to be together and not be on electronics for the whole day. Neighbors could get together at the pool too. If it is too much money, I have solved that problem. We can raise money with the fair. I figured where to put it. It will go in the empty lot near McIntoons. It is true, almost all of my classmates think it would be a good idea to get a community pool in Lonsdale. It's time to have a community pool in Lonsdale, and fast. From Martin Bongers. So there. Are those persuasive letters?
They are.
There. Okay. So are you guys for a pool now? Not that
think
persuasive.
so.
I'm for a fair, maybe.
The fair, I think the fair is a great idea.
Food truck and corn dogs and.
Yeah.
I do have to give the boys an attaboy
Yeah.
for taking the time to write a letter and submit it to the city. Anyway, that's all I have.
Make a motion to adjourn, Your Honor.
Motion by Councilman Cherney.
Second.
Second by Councilman Palava. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This meeting's adjourned.
There's with the school now. I don't think their outdoor one's open.
I don't think they have that outdoor, did they take that out?